Hello, fiction fans. TH Leatherman here. Today I'm going to do part 2 of the Bighorn Book Nook interviews. I had an in-depth interview with Todd Fahnestock, so it's going to get its own place in one of my interviews on the YouTube channel. Like the other authors I interviewed, we went into why does he write? This is what he said. Hello everyone, TH Leatherman here, and I am with the amazing Todd Fahnestock.
Outstanding. That's the first time I've had that adjective go before my name, so I like it. Let's do that.
Outstanding. So Todd, what got you into writing?
So that actually is a story I tell to classrooms when I go and do class visits at elementary school. So essentially, when I was 14, my parents got divorced, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Was something that I did not want to have happen. As a 14-year-old, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I do not want this to have this happen. I would rather my parents stay together. And so that actually was not something that I could control. And right about that time, I really got into fantasy books.
Okay.
And when I talk to the classes about this, I talk about trope. So trope being the structure of a specific kind of genre novel, you know, what's within it. So mystery trope would be somebody's dead, we don't know who did it, we got to find out who did it, right? Fantasy trope is somebody with very little power, goes on a journey, and confronts somebody with a great deal of power, the big bad, as I call them. And over the course of the journey, the person with little power either accrues enough power to defeat the big bad, or finds the magic sword, the magic key, the magic ring that will defeat the big bad. And if you have any question as to what a fantasy trope is, just look at Lord of the Rings. It is the fantasy trope to a T. You know, the most inconsequential imaginable person taking this ring to Mount Doom and destroying the most powerful person imaginable, right? So at the time I had no idea why I just craved and loved fantasy novels. I just did. It was like, well, just because they're the best thing ever, right? In retrospect, looking back, I see that there was probably a lot more going on there. That psychologically, I loved that trope because it implied that somebody who had no power and no control over the situation could go on a journey and accrue the power that they needed to make the big bad not happen, right? And in my case, the big bad was the divorce. So, alas, fantasy novels didn't enable me to stop my parents from getting divorced. But they did create this escapism over that time to enable me to get past this really hard place, you know? And I could have gone 100 different ways. I mean, instead of reading fantasy novels, I could have gone out and sprayed graffiti on things, you know, broken into cars. I could have done some things that would have affected my life and lifestyle forever. And when I got past that hard time and kind of got beyond that and was able to look back and say, gosh, I think that's what I was doing. I think I was using escapism to mitigate the pain of what was happening and the fright of what was happening and the uncertainty of what was happening to get past it. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, wow, what an amazing gift that was that those authors gave to me. This thing that, in a very real way, I mean, oftentimes you talk about escapism and it's kind of a bad word, right? It's like, oh, well, you don't want to do escapism. You do escapism and you're not facing your real problems, or you're not facing your real life, and you're going to, you know, tumble down in a fiery wreck. Not true. Escapism in the right amount or the right dose can help you through things you wouldn't be able to get through otherwise, you know? Rather than a counselor, I had fantasy novels, right? And exactly. So when I looked back on that and said, that was such an amazing gift. I want to do that. If that's the most amazing thing that a person can do, is help somebody who's lost and alone move past something they're struggling with by giving them hope through imagination and the written word. And so by the time I was 18 in high school, I wanted to write my first fantasy novel. And that's when I started writing my first fantasy novel. And I finished it, and I thought it was the most amazing novel ever. It was a piece of crap in reality, but I thought that it was great. And, you know, spinning off of that notion of, you know, escapism and what you believe kind of tends to make your reality, because I thought it was that great, I wrote another one.
Yes.
And that one was crap. But I thought it was great, and so on and so forth.
And so on and so forth.
Until about the 12th novel. So that's how I got into writing novels.
Outstanding. Yeah, I actually, your story actually mirrors mine pretty closely. In my particular case, it wasn't my parents getting divorced, it was the fact that my sister, someone who I'd grown up with, my only sister, my only sibling, died. And that happened in 96, so quite a while ago. But when that happened, that was one of those things, was sort of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? What do I want to do with my life?
Right, because you're not guaranteed. Wow, I'm so
You're
sorry.
not guaranteed a future. Because
Yeah.
she was 3.5 years younger than me.
And she was how old at the time?
She was 24 at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's got to change your perspective right around. It's like, accruing money, accruing riches. No, what?
No.
What is the most important, and why am I not doing it
Right
this
now.
second?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's a powerful story. And so then you decided to do science fiction and fantasy?
It's in fantasy. And I wrote my first fantasy novel, and that took like 10 years. Because I was never happy with it. And then I got done with it, and it's like, I gave it to my mother, who's an editor, and said, hey,
what do you think?
What do you think? Red. It's like,
yeah.
all right, I need to learn a lot.
I had the opportunity. My childhood hero was Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. They wrote the Dragonlance novels.
Yeah.
And those were my favorite novels in high school. I started with Lloyd Alexander, moved on to Terry Brooks, and then Dragonlance, as well as Piers Anthony was huge in there. But anyways,
Yes.
I had the opportunity to meet her when I was 18, right? To talk to her.
Wow.
And she said, send me your chapters, and I'll take a look at them. Or actually, we were corresponding for a while, and I was kind of trying, hinting. Can you please help me out? Can you please? And finally, I'm like, look, do you want to take a look at my stuff or not? She's like, I just wanted to let you know that I'm an editor. I was an editor first before I was a writer, and I am reluctant to look at young writers' work because I don't want to
Kill
their inspiration, because I will tell you the hard truth if you want to hear it. They're like, I want to hear it. And so I sent her my 5 chapters, and 3 out of the 5 chapters, she just put a big X through. It was devastating, but she had warned me ahead of time, which was a kindness on her part, because I was braced for her to, I was thinking she's going to write back and say, these are amazing, you're going to be the next superstar, and instead I get these, 3 chapters. And the 2 chapters that remained had red lines through them, but the 3 chapters that I'm talking about, just get rid of them. All of them. And I was like, what? That's my life's blood. But it really woke me up to the fact that your good stuff is what you want to get out into the world.
That's right.
And the bad stuff, you shouldn't be afraid to let go of that, because, it's not serving you. So don't hang on to it. Keep evolving, keep changing, keep building, and let the stuff that doesn't work as much fall away. And she taught me that lesson early on.
Good. Outstanding. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
In the interview, Todd Fahnestock asked me why I write, and while that has been answered in some podcast interviews on other locations, I will leave the links in the notes below. I'll go ahead and answer that here as well. Back in 1996, my sister passed away, and I became an only child. At that time, I made some difficult decisions about what I was doing with my life. One of those things was I didn't really have a career. I just kind of moved from odd job to odd job. That's when I became a stockbroker. The other thing that I did is I started writing for fun. I thought about all the books I enjoyed reading, and I thought, hey, what if I wrote a book myself? So that book has never been published. It's gone through several revisions, but it's one of those things that got me started. And about 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to write a space opera. So I started writing that book at that time. That is what became the Burning Sun series. But it all started with a tragic event in my life that kind of kicked me into gear and got me thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. And one of those things was to be an author. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. I post weekly. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover, message me on Facebook. If you enjoyed this episode, like or comment below. I'm going to leave that in. So long, fiction fans.